Welcome to Mount Sinai Future You, a show highlighting innovations and research at Mount Sinai that are changing patients' lives. Shakespeare said that art is a mirror held up to nature, and for some, art is as vital as water. That's especially true for a painter from New Jersey who shares a special bond with the surgeon who saved her life. She's back to painting and invited us into her studio to show us some inspirational pieces that tell her story.
The black lines always go on last. I have hundreds of paintings, so it's really something that's just part of me that I love to do.
Linda Rosen has been painting for as long as she can remember. She even turned her basement into a studio.
Once that basement was finished, I would go down there 5 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't answer the phone, nothing. I would just work.
But then came the headaches.
I was getting these horrible, horrible headaches for years. And then one day, on the way home from work, I had such a bad headache. I remember I could not see straight. I was just, the headache was excruciating.
She doesn't remember what happened next. A Good Samaritan called 911 after seeing Linda crash her car into a cornfield in rural New Jersey. It was November 6th, 2002. A scan at the hospital revealed a frontal lobe brain tumor.
I had noticed that I couldn't smell anymore. And that was because the tumor was coming from my olfactory nerves.
Linda was referred to Dr. Joshua Betterson, chair of the Department of Neurosurgery at the Mount Sinai Health System.
I remember staring at the ceiling as they were wheeling me into the operating room and thinking, okay, now it's in the hands of God and Dr. Betterson.
The hands of a skilled neurosurgeon, who is also a skilled sculptor.
I love to use my hands. I love things of beauty. I did take a year off from medical school to go to graduate school at NYU in sculpture.
Like Linda, Dr. Betterson built a studio in his house, which is where he spends much of his time when he's not in the operating room.
As you move, it almost goes from man to woman, and she starts to smile.
His pieces of various shapes, sizes, and materials are scattered in and around his home, including sculptures like this one, which reflect balance.
In surgery, the surgeon wants to remove the pathology until he or she exposes the beautiful anatomy of the nervous system. And in many types of sculpture, you are removing the part of the stone or the wood that is not relevant to the final shape that you have in mind.
Dr. Betterson says Linda's tumor was the size of a baseball. During a surgery that lasted hours, the sculptor used his hands to save the life of the painter.
When someone does something that you do also, you can relate to that personally. But I think on a professional level, the connection is always there with the humanity of whoever is under the drapes.
I've always been optimistic. After that, it was like I could do anything. There was no stopping. I was given another chance to really live life and do what I wanted.
Linda says her art changed following surgery. She moved from muted tones to vibrant pigments.
I found that I was getting more and more into color and more fun type of painting.
Her work was recently displayed at the Agora Gallery in New York City's Chelsea neighborhood. Other pieces have won prizes. It's a second chance at life and art, thanks to a fellow artist with a delicate touch.
And the whole experience just seems kind of like miraculous. And I remember saying to my mother in the hospital, well, you know, what if I die from this surgery? Because you're not going to die. Somebody's watching over you. An angel is watching you.
When conventional treatments failed, a pediatric surgeon was forced to think outside the box to tackle a challenging cancer that was causing hundreds of tumors in the abdomen of a young boy. This new form of chemotherapy, rarely used in children, is giving one patient a fighting chance.
Miracles are things that we really just think are impossible. Maybe things that we hope for, but we don't really expect can happen because they just seem to be beyond the realm of possibility. And that's what we encountered with Japheth. Eventually, the impossible can actually become possible.
When he started getting sick, it was like a mystery to everybody.
Japheth's disease is nothing more than a death sentence. He had not just one tumor, he had hundreds of tumors. They were completely scattered throughout his abdomen, essentially not sparing any organ. Without proper treatment, most patients do not live longer than a year. Many patients get systemic chemotherapy through their bloodstream. As a part of his surgery, we use a chemotherapy that's poured directly into the abdomen and heated up to 104 degrees to induce direct killing of the cancer cells.
I spoke to the doctors here. I said, if we do this, what is likability of lifespan for my son? So they say, if we don't do this, you could lose your son soon.
It's really remarkable what we can accomplish when we're willing to think innovatively. And currently, we're one of just 2 centers in the entire country offering HIPEC for advanced pediatric cancers. And what's more is we're offering hope to families that won't find that hope in other places.
It's my joy, my only son. He had gave me a life. I was not expecting to have more children, and I got him at my older age.
His surveillance imaging is perfect. Based on his response, no reason to think that he can't graduate from high school, maybe go to college, meet the love of his life, maybe have a family.
My daily life is to support him, to grow up to be a strong boy, strong man, and to reach the years that God wants him to reach. He is my inspiration.
89-year-old Rosemarie Battaglia is a legend in women's basketball. She led a Catholic high school team in New Jersey to national acclaim in the 1970s, while at the same time coaching a community college. When Rose found out that she was to be inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, nothing would stop her from attending the ceremony, not even cancer. And thanks to an advanced radiation treatment, Rose was able to forego surgery and attend the event, which honored her legacy.
My career in coaching was 37 years, and I did high school through community college. It was fun. Paramus Catholic High School in Paramus, New Jersey, and we had very good teams, and I had an All-American high school player, a college player, Ann Donovan, who also coached the '84 Olympics. When I realized I was going into the Hall of Fame, well, I had to give a speech, and the first sentence I said was, "My life is complete." That'll tell you.
When she first came to me to see me about her lung cancer, she had this very special event coming up where she's going to be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And so part of my responsibility is to fit her cancer treatment into her life plans. And this really was the culmination of a lifetime of work for her. So I think as part of her healthcare team, we really wanted to make sure she could be there to enjoy this while at the same time not compromising her cancer care. The tumor was found at a very early stage, so it gave us a lot of treatment options for her. It was a treatment that we could do with radiation and do very successfully. And because of the characteristics of it on the scans and her imaging, we knew with a high degree of probability we were probably dealing with a cancer, and that allowed us to really just proceed straight to treatment so we could work on a time frame that fit the events that she wanted to get to. Although we often do want to get a biopsy to make sure we know exactly what we're dealing with, there are some special situations where the probability of it being a cancer is so high, we can go straight from the imaging exam straight to the treatment. And there are a certain percentage of patients where that's the appropriate next step. So given the characteristics of what Ms. Battaglia looked like, her situation, and also the urgency to get the treatment completed so that she can get on to really the culmination of her career, I think we're all on the same page to get the treatment started and get her taken care of.
I think I would have done anything under my power not to miss it. They take 7 people a year, and they take them from all over the world. It's not necessarily just Americans. And take male and female, since a lot of males coach. So it was an honor. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I didn't want to miss it.
So I think she approached this with a tremendous amount of grace, a lot of practicality, and I think that probably relates to her time as a successful coach. I have a problem in front of me. Here are the options. This is the best option ahead. We're going to do it and take care of this. So I think a real no-nonsense approach, a certain amount of calm under pressure, and that probably characterized her during her career as well.
Being there was just such a thrill. Oh my goodness, such an honor. And so many people just being there for us. It was wonderful.
The treatment we're offering her really wouldn't have been available 10, 15 years ago. This is really cutting-edge technology. We're able to focus the radiation beams just on her tumor with very minimal side effects to her surrounding tissue. So when she's up there on the stage at the induction ceremony, no one's going to know that she just went through a cancer procedure. And that's really just a consequence of the advanced technology we're using to fight cancer these days.
With heart disease on the rise, a team of doctors led by renowned cardiologist Dr. Valentin Fuster have set out to stem the tide with science, education, and early intervention. Their ultimate goal is to promote better heart health worldwide. This next segment is a sneak preview of a new documentary film called The Resilient Heart, which profiles their efforts.
I began my career with research on a disease that already was becoming the #1 killer, heart attacks. When I became president of the American Heart Association, there was a period of understanding that something had to be done. There was a transition from a researcher to working socially. This changed my life. It's amazing. How young are you now?
I'll be 96 on June 10th.
And how often you play tennis?
Twice a week.
That's an example.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I'll be 50 years old. I don't have diabetes. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have any of those issues.
But we can have disease at age 70, and we might have prevented by taking care at age 50.
Over 80% of cardiovascular deaths occur in low and middle income countries.
We put a group together to go into developing countries and test whether or not we could make a difference.
One of the critical issues is the discrepancies that you see in the world we live.
There's 2 patients per bed.
There are barriers everywhere you go.
Growing up a poor person, you see what it is like to live in that situation.
They do not have angioplasty, no forms of cardiac surgery.
When I became aware of the project, my eyes lit up because I realized this is what needs to be done.
When we talk about global health, it's very important to start in childhood.
¡Miren quién nos vino a visitar hoy, chicos!
Nuestra amiga Tomasa es la amiguita que nos da ¿qué? Leche. Leche. ¿La leche dónde viene? De nuestra amiguita Tomasa. Ya va, una sorpresita. Ayúdenme ustedes al tiempo, a ver. Los niños tienen 4 años y medio y otros ya se están acercando a los 5. Todos los conocimientos que uno les brinde, ellos los captan súper rápido. Entonces, temas como del corazón, como lo de la clasificación de los alimentos, cómo se debe alimentar uno bien. Ellos son una esponjita de saberes.
And I'm absolutely obsessed about it. These guys have to be followed for 15 years. Very difficult project. We cannot give up. You always have to start very humble, very small. If it works, you go higher. If it works, you go higher.
We're really looking at sick populations and not just sick people.
And one of the things you learn very quickly is that we are all the same. We can dress differently. But at the moment that the disease affects you, there's no difference. When we talk about global health, it's very important to start in childhood. Then we have the adults. Much more difficult to change habits in adults. There are barriers everywhere you go. Oh, you learn a lot. Everything I'm telling you is learning like a rat in the street. You know, you learn through the barriers. So you never give up if you have a concept you believe in. We have an incredible potential to change society. We are transforming the way of research by motivating young people to move from disease to health. You just have to turn their brains on. It's so simple.
The documentary, The Resilient Heart, is available on Amazon Prime. Another cardiologist seeking to educate the world on heart disease is Dr. Narula, who's investigating ancient mummies to determine whether cardiovascular disease has been prevalent throughout human history. Dr. Narula shares his discoveries and how these findings can help patients in a new segment we're launching this broadcast called In Their Own Words.
It was my grandfather's desire that he wanted to see his grandson as a cardiologist. I got this very prestigious invitation to join one of the famous engineering schools in India. My grandfather just looked at me and he said that, "I thought you're going to become a cardiologist, aren't you?" And that was the end of the nuclear physics. My commitment is to preventing the cardiovascular disease. The Cardiovascular Institute, it is the state-of-the-art facility. Every physician here is committed to the quality of care and giving his or her best for the patient care. We were truly surprised as to what exactly happened. The expectation was that we would not find any heart disease in the mummies. But when we looked at the Egyptian mummies, we find that in up to 1/3 of them, there was an evidence of atherosclerosis, or they also suffered quite like we suffer today. Can coronary artery disease be eliminated? I certainly believe yes. 90% of the disease can be just simply explained by the risk factors. I would like the people to come to me even before they have the disease so that we could evaluate their risk factors. And if we eliminate the risk factors, why should we not be able to eliminate the disease?
Melinda Constantine knew something was wrong after giving birth to her son. A few days after leaving the hospital, she was back, this time in the emergency room, where doctors diagnosed her with a serious heart condition. They surgically implanted a device to keep her heart pumping blood. Melinda describes her near-death experience and how she's grateful to have a second chance.
I had a relatively easy pregnancy, no complications, no symptoms of anything going wrong. I actually loved to be pregnant. I gave birth to my son, everybody was ecstatic and happy, and then that night I didn't feel that well. When I came into the emergency room, they told me that my heart was only functioning at 14%. They didn't know how I was still walking and talking. I was scared, definitely. I was confused, and just very unsure of what this meant for the future.
I'm very glad that Melinda came here to Mount Sinai because we are experts in the field of advanced heart failure. We knew that in order to maintain her survival, we were going to need to put in a ventricular assist device.
I remembered crying going into the operating room, and they prepared everybody that I might not wake up for 2 or 3 days, and I woke up that night. Begging to be taken off the ventilator. I was sore, but I wasn't coughing. I wasn't getting short of breath. I actually felt like how I should have felt right after giving birth.
You know what impresses me about Melinda is her spirit. She is definitely a fighter. She's someone who pushes on.
I love the team that I have here. Mount Sinai, and especially Dr. Pinney and my surgeon, Dr. Ani, have been phenomenal. I think having that personal relationship with me put me so much more at ease during my recovery process. I owe my entire life to them. When I went into the hospital and he was still that tiny little infant, now he was, you know, sitting himself up and starting to roll around. It was so nice to be able to see that. Especially not knowing that I would ever be able to do that.
We're very much looking forward to carrying Melinda through the next phase of her treatment, which is her heart transplant. I have no doubt that she's going to do great.
So my hopes for the future, obviously to live a very long life, experience watching my son grow up, watch him get married, but being able to enjoy my life.
About 30% of patients admitted to the Mount Sinai Hospital are diagnosed with diabetes, and more than 100 million people in the United States are living with diabetes or prediabetes. In our next story, clinicians and researchers discuss how the disease is linked to other conditions and stress the importance of finding new treatments.
The Hilda and J. Lester Gabriel Division of Endocrinology, Diabetes, and Bone Disease at the Icahn School of Medicine is a very large division of endocrinology that spans services across our entire health system, which reaches not only Manhattan, but out into the boroughs. And we deliver excellent diabetes care as well as general endocrine care, both primary and then referral, very highly specialized care.
We have a very strong commitment to research in diabetes and metabolism for several reasons. One, diabetes is one of the most common of all medical diseases. About 30% of patients that are admitted to Mount Sinai Hospital have diabetes. And the consequences of long-term diabetes is very significant. It can affect one's life throughout their lifespan. And so we feel it's our responsibility to do research and to come up with better treatments like obesity.
Diabetes and obesity have been associated with a number of different cancers. They're both associated with an increased risk of developing certain cancers as well as an increased mortality from certain cancers. And the metabolic syndrome, which is a spectrum, part of the obesity and type 2 diabetes spectrum, is associated with obesity, dyslipidemia, and insulin resistance, and we think that a lot of these factors contribute to the increase in cancer growth and mortality.
The link between diabetes and polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, was first recognized as a phenomenon, and then through research, a lot of which I led in my research group, we came to realize that these women are profoundly insulin resistant and at very increased risk for developing type 2 diabetes at a young age. We're talking about women who are adolescents and young adults. So it's a significant risk factor, and we now recognize that for type 2 diabetes.
Pancreatic beta cells are the cells in the body that make insulin. They're located in the pancreas. We all have a total of about a cc, this much in terms of total beta cells, and their job is to make insulin. It turns out that everybody with diabetes has inadequate numbers of beta cells. That's true for both type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And so an obvious solution to that would be to figure out ways to replace or regenerate beta cells. In type 1 diabetes, pancreatic beta cells are destroyed by the immune system. Nobody really knows why it is, why that happens. It's called autoimmunity. And type 1 diabetes accounts for about 5% of people with diabetes.
The focus of our research here at Mount Sinai in type 1 diabetes relates to closed-loop systems or artificial pancreas. As we continued to provide care to patients, it became very obvious over the last 5 to 8 years that the direction that is critical in terms of providing care to patients with diabetes is to provide benefits from a device and technology perspective. And this is what's led us to the direction to collaborate with multiple different institutions throughout the country, as well as the pharmaceutical industry in artificial pancreas development.
Going forward, there's a lot more that needs to be done. As I mentioned, immunology autoimmunity is a big challenge. Mount Sinai is extremely strong in autoimmunity and immunology, and we're working closely with the Immunology Institute to develop ways to bypass or overcome or prevent the autoimmunity associated with type 1 diabetes. When it comes time to do clinical trials with next generation drugs, Mount Sinai is uniquely positioned to study patients of every age, both genders, every ethnicity, in enormous numbers. Mount Sinai is responsible for the care of something like 40% of all of the people in New York City, and so that means that we have access to huge numbers of people with diabetes. We also have strong support from the community and from the hospital to do just that.
Mount Sinai will play a critical role in improving diabetes care throughout our health system. We're already beginning to do that by identifying the highest risk patients with the worst diabetes care, having an intensive team approach where we're able to lower their hemoglobin A1Cs, and then refer in for the most intensive care the patients who are the most resistant to treatment. So we're really delivering the appropriate care in the appropriate location and referring people who need the most sophisticated management for type 2 diabetes.
Thank you for watching Mount Sinai Future You. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook to learn more about the incredible research and innovation happening here at Mount Sinai.